What's going on, guys? It is Jake. I am back again for another video. So hope you guys have been doing well. I know it's been a few days. Let's see. Finally got school figured out. I am done going to class for I think like 2 weeks now, maybe 3 weeks. I think it's about 2 weeks. I have to look at the date for sure. So besides like three or 4 days, you guys got me for 2 weeks. So I'm definitely gonna be back here. This gonna be fun. But yeah, hope you guys are doing good. Is there anything that I haven't told you guys that I have had? Let's see. I've been very 3D connected because I've been just doing, school. My mom's moving to Arizona, so I've been helping her move stuff out of her house because I used to be a mover, So I've just been moving furniture, doing stuff like that. So I haven't been as connected, but today I did a meditation. I did a chakra clearing, and I asked if anyone was around me. And I was looking around because I felt this like presence. And then I would say maybe 3 feet, something like that. Maybe a little short, maybe 2.5 feet. But I saw this big flash of this blue energy, just like in the middle of the room, just like flash, like tall, So that was really interesting. And I kept getting an image of like grays around. So I'm not sure if they're grays or Arcturians. I think they're grays though. So that's been around me. A lot of, I think, positive reptilians have been around too. And yeah, I haven't been able to connect as much. So I have time now. So finally, I will. So yeah, so let's get back into it, guys. So I'm going to read The Law of One and continue where I was. And so obviously, as you guys know, I didn't go to the hospital because I would have posted a video. My migraines are starting to go away. It's a thing where I'm not getting the migraines every night, but during the day, I constantly have this low pressure on the side of my head. So, I mean, it's still kind of painful, but I have to just, get through the spring, get through maybe another couple of weeks or maybe a month, however long this takes, because it doesn't last the whole time, because that would last until like May, which I could not live with. So things are getting back to normal. So I am very happy about that. So I'm happy to be back on here. And I really want to try to, like, okay, I channel beings, I ask for whatever people need at the moment, what's information that the majority of people could benefit from to hear. But I've never really, I think I've talked about this, I've never tried to sit down and, think of a specific person and then channel, focus on their face, because I know that's the way that you're supposed to do it. So, focus on their face and then try to bring information from someone. So I'm gonna dabble with that a little bit. I think in meditations, if someone comes, it does. If not, whatever. But I've never really tried to think about bringing in information from a specific person. It all just comes to me. So I'm gonna try to do that. So I know you guys have told me you want me to channel some Ascended Masters. Krishna, I believe, was somebody, and then a couple other people. So I am going to try to do that. So that'll be interesting. That'll be fun. So just want to put that out there. It's been on my mind for a couple days now, because even though I haven't been able to do anything really with all the spiritual stuff, I've been thinking about a lot of things, and that's one thing that I want to try to maybe try to branch out into, is just trying to focus on somebody specifically and then bring them out. So okay, so session 33, and on number 33, that's where we start. That's interesting. So, all right, questioner. In our last session, you said that each of us in these sessions should look well to the vital energies necessary for non-depletion of the instrument and the contact level. Does that mean we should look at the instrument's vital energies or be careful of our own vital energies? So even though I don't usually read about what can help the person, this sounds like it can be towards everybody, so I'll read this part off. Each entity is responsible for itself. The mechanics of this process taking place involve, firstly, the use of the physical bodily complex of third density with its accompanying physical material in order to voice these words. Thus, the instrument needs to watch its vital energies carefully, for we do not wish to deplete this instrument. Secondly, the function of the supporting group may be seen to be, firstly, that of protection for this contact. Secondly, that of energizing the instrument and intensifying its vital energies. Which, by the way, I've been getting more visions of when I think I contacted the Rock Collective. So that's kind of where I was going to lead to with the whole, like, who I'm trying to think of to bring in. So I think I'm going to try to bring in the Rock Collective because, you know, they contacted me in a vision to do this. So clearly I think if there's something that I can maybe try to grab from them, I'll be able to. So, but that's just something that I'm thinking about. So, okay. The supporting group has always, due to an underlying harmony, been of a very stable nature as regards protection and love and light, thus ensuring the continuation of this narrow band contact. However, the vital energies of either of the supporting members being depleted, the instrument must then use a larger portion of its vital energies, thus depleting itself more than would be profitable on a long-term basis. Please understand that we ask your apology for this infringement upon your free will. However, it is our distortion understanding that you would prefer this information rather than being left totally to your own dedication distortion. Deplete the instrument or deplete the group to the point where the contact cannot be sustained. Can you give us advice on how to maintain the best possible condition for maintaining contact? We have given information concerning the proper nurturing of this channel. We therefore repeat ourselves only in two ways in general. Firstly, we suggest that rather than being, shall we say, brave and ignoring a physical complex weakness, distortion, it is good to share this distortion with the group and thus perhaps, shall we say, remove one opportunity for contact, which is very wearying for the instrument, in order that another opportunity might come about in which the instrument is properly supported. Secondly, the work begun in harmony may continue in harmony, thanksgiving and praise of opportunities and of the Creator. These are your protections. These are our suggestions. We cannot be specific, for your free will is of the essence in this contact. As we have said, we only speak to this subject because of our grasp of your orientation towards long-term maintenance of this contact. This is acceptable to us. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of visions right now of just the Zetas, so I feel like there's just a ton. Like, I just feel like in another dimension, like there's like 10 of them behind me. I just feel it right now. I'm feeling like I'm being watched. But I know like a week or two ago I did a channeling and ended up rewatching it because I really wanted to see what they had to say mainly. And so I know that the Zetas are like observing some people, and I think I'm one included. But it's just weird. It's a very heavy feeling. I just, you know, when you feel like someone's watching you and then you look over to see. I mean, it's like living with that feeling. It's very weird. It's very awkward. So if it keeps going on, I'm going to try to bring them out soon. So, okay. Thank you very much. We have a device for so-called color therapy. And since we were on the concept of the different colors in the last session, I was wondering if this would be in some way applied to the principle of color therapy in the shining of particular colors on the physical body. Does this create a beneficial effect, and can you tell me something about it? This therapy, as you call it, is a somewhat clumsy and variably useful tool for instigating in an entity's mind-body-spirit complex, an intensification of energies or vibrations which may be of aid to the entity. The variableness of this device is due firstly to the lack of true colors used, secondly to the extreme variation in sensitivity to vibration among your pupils. I would think that you could achieve a true color by passing light through a crystal of the particular color. Is this correct? You would think so. This would be one way of approaching accuracy in color. It is a matter of what you call quality control that the celluloid used is of a varying color. This is not of a great or even visible variation. However, it does make some difference given specific applications. Possibly you could use a prism breaking white light into its spectrum and screening off all parts of the spectrum except that which you wish to use by passing it through a slit. Would this be true? This is correct. I was wondering if there is a programming of experiences that causes an individual to get certain catalysts in his daily life. For instance, as we go through our daily life, there are many things which we can experience. We can look at these experiences as occurring by pure chance or by a conscious design of our own, such as making appointments or going places. I was wondering if there was a behind the scenes, as you might call it, programming of catalysts to create the necessary experiences for more rapid growth in the case of some entities. Does this happen? We believe we grasp the heart of your query. Please request further information if we are not correct. The incarnating entity, which has become conscious of the incarnative process and thus programs its own experience, may choose the amount of catalyst, or to phrase this differently, the number of lessons which it will undertake to experience and to learn from in one incarnation. This does not mean that all is predestined, but rather that there are invisible guidelines shaping events which will function according to this programming. Thus, if one opportunity is missed, another will appear until the, shall we say, student of the life experience grasps that a lesson is being offered and undertakes to learn it. So, take in mind, if you have a certain, I want to use the word weakness, I don't like weakness. If you have a certain aspect in your life that needs improvement, we're constantly feeling like it's being pushed in our faces, and then that's where like the denial is created, because you don't really want to deal with yourself. So I know everyone has things, like I have certain things that I know I should be better at. So I'm constantly being given that solution, but being in this human body, being in the third dimension, a lot of us, like myself, are just too stubborn to a lot of the times take on the call. We do for some things, but then there's some things that we don't. But you always need the improvement. It's always there. So that's really nice to hear. That's nice to basically be have this confirmed. So. All right. So then these lessons would be reprogrammed, you might say, as the life experience continues. Let's say that an entity develops the bias that he actually didn't choose to develop prior to incarnation. It is then possible to program experiences so that he will have an opportunity to alleviate this bias through balancing. Is this correct? This is precisely correct. Thank you. From this, I would extrapolate to the conjecture that the orientation in mind of the entity is the only thing that is of any consequence at all. The physical catalyst that he experiences, regardless of what is happening about him, will be a function strictly of his orientation in mind. I will use as an example this being a statement of the orientation in mind governing the catalyst. Is this correct? We prefer to use not to use any well-known examples, sayings, or adages in our communications to you due to the tremendous amount of distortion which any well-known saying has undergone. Therefore, we may answer the first part of your query asking that you delete the example. It is completely true to the best of our knowledge that the orientation or polarization of the mind-body-spirit complex is the cause of the perceptions generated by each entity. Thus, a scene may be observed in your grocery store. The entity ahead of self may be without sufficient funds. One entity may then take this opportunity to steal. Another may take this opportunity to feel itself a failure. Another may unconcernedly remove the least necessary items, pay for what it can, and go about its business. The one behind the self observing may feel compassion, may feel an insult because of standing next to a poverty-stricken person, may feel generosity, may feel indifference. Do you see now the analogies in a more appropriate manner? I think that I do. Then from this I will extrapolate the concept, which is somewhat more difficult because, as you have explained before, even fourth density positive has the concept of defensive action. But above the level of fourth density, the concept of defensive action is not in use. The concept of defensive action and offensive action are very much in use in our present density. I am assuming that if an entity is polarized strongly enough in his thought in a positive sense, that defensive action is not going to be necessary for him because the opportunity to apply defensive action will never originate from him. Is this correct? This is unknowable. In each case, as we have said, an entity able to program experiences may choose the number and the intensity of lessons to be learned. It is possible that an extremely positively oriented entity might program for itself situations testing the ability of self to refrain from defensive action, even to the point of the physical death of self or other self. This is an intensive lesson, and it is not known, shall we say, what entities have programmed. We may, if we desire, read this programming. However, this is an infringement, and we choose not to do so. I will ask you if you are familiar with a motion picture called the Ninth Configuration. I've never heard of that, so if you guys have, There you go. Are you familiar with this? We scan your mind and see this configuration called the ninth configuration. This motion picture brought out the point about which we have been talking about. The colonel had to make a decision. I was wondering about his polarization. He could have knuckled under, you might say, to the negative forces, but he chose to defend his friend instead. Is it possible for you to estimate which is more positively polarizing, to defend the positively oriented entity or to allow suppression by the negatively oriented entities? This question takes in the scope of fourth density as well as your own, and its answer may be best seen by the action of the entity called Yeshua, which you call Jesus. This entity was to be defended by its friends. The entity reminded its friends to put away the sword. This entity then delivered itself to be put to the physical death. The impulse to protect the loved other self is one which persists through the fourth density, a density abounding in compassion. More than this, we cannot and need not say. Thank you. As we near the end of this master cycle, there may be an increasing amount of catalyst for entities. I'm wondering if, as the planetary vibrations mismatch somewhat with the fourth density vibrations and catalyst is increased, if this will create more polarization, thereby getting a slightly greater harvest. I resonate with that. I feel that makes sense. I can see that happening. The question must be answered in two parts. Firstly, the planetary catastrophes, as you may call them, are a symptom of the difficult harvest rather than a consciously programmed catalyst for harvest. Thus, we do not concern ourselves with it, for it is random in respect to conscious catalysts, such as we may make available. The second portion is this. The results of the random catalysts of what you call the earth changes are also random. Thus, we may see possibility vortices going towards positive and negative. However, it will be as it will be. The true opportunities for conscious catalysts are not a function of the earth changes, but of the result of the seniority system of incarnations, which at the time of the harvest is placed in incarnation those whose chances of using life experiences to become harvestable are the best. So all you people out there, basically, it means you guys are the ones who are choosing to shine the light, be a light worker, change the world, this time around. And then hopefully we, get all set. Perfect. In the seniority system, also used in the service to self side, is the seniority system also used in the service to self side for becoming harvestable on that side? This is correct. You may ask one more full question at this time. What I would like for you to do is list all the major mechanisms designed to provoke catalytic experience that do not include interaction with other self. That is the first part. We grasp from this question that you realize that the primary mechanism for catalytic experience in third density is other self. The list of other catalytic influences, firstly, the creator's universe, and then secondly, the self. Can you list any subheadings under self or ways the self is acted upon catalytically which would produce experience? Firstly, the self unmanifested. Secondly, the self in relation to the societal self created by self and other self. Thirdly, the interaction between self and the gadgets, toys, and amusements of the self, other self invention. And fourthly, the self relationship with those attributes which you may call war and rumors of war. I was thinking possibly of the catalyst of physical pain. Does this go under this heading? This is correct. It going under the heading of the unmanifested self. That is, the self which does not need other self in order to manifest or act. Do we have enough time left to ask the second part of this question, which is to list all major mechanisms designed to provide the catalyst that include action with other self? You have much time for this, for we may express this list in one of two ways. We could speak infinitely, or we could simply state that any interaction betwixt self and other self has whatever potential for catalyst that there exists in the potential difference between self and other self. This moderated and undergirded by the constant fact of the creator as self and as other self. You may ask to this question further, if you wish specific information. I believe that is sufficient for the time being. Do you have a brief query or two before we close this working? Yes, here is one question. Is there any difference in violet ray activity or brightness between entities who are at entrance level both positive and negative to fourth density? This is correct. The violet ray of the positive fourth density will be tinged with the green, blue, indigo triad of energies. This tinge may be seen as a portion of a rainbow or prism as you know it, the rays being quite distinct. The violet ray of fourth density negative has in its aura, shall we say, the tinge of red, orange, yellow, these rays being muddied rather than distinct. What would the rays of fifth and sixth density look like? I bet those would look amazing. We may speak only approximately. However, we hope you understand, shall we say, that there is a distinctive difference in the color structure of each density. Fifth density is perhaps best described as extremely white in vibration. The sixth density of a whiteness which contains a golden quality as you would perceive it. These colors having to do with the blending into wisdom of the compassion learned in fourth density, then in sixth the blending of wisdom back into unified understanding of compassion viewed with wisdom. This golden color is not of your spectrum, but is what you call alive. You may ask one more question briefly. You know, that really interests me because every time I've connected to the fifth density, what I thought was fifth density, it was always that gold. It was like I'm living in this golden, energized moment. Like you're living in the now, literally. And then when I met the raw beings, the raw collective energies, and then whenever I go into meditation, and then sometimes I'll see the Yael or I'll see Lyrans, I think it's fifth density. I wonder if it's not. You know, I mean, I know this is just a book, but it's like, you know, I don't know. That'd be funny if I'm like connecting to the sixth density, but I think I'm connecting to the fifth density. But who knows? When the time comes to know, then it's time. Then I will ask if there's anything that we can do to make the instrument more okay, I'll skip that. Okay. Where are we? 22. You stated at an earlier time that penetration of the 8th level or intelligent infinity allows a mind-body-spirit complex to be harvested if it wishes at any time space during the cycle. When this penetration of the 8th level occurs, what does the entity who penetrates it experience? The experience of each entity is unique in its perception of intelligent infinity. Perceptions range from a limitless joy to a strong dedication to service to others while in the incarnated state. The entity which reaches intelligent infinity most often will perceive this experience as one of unspeakable profundity. However, it is not usual for the entity to immediately desire the cessation of the incarnation. Rather, the desire to communicate or use this experience to aid others is extremely strong. Thank you. Would you define karma? So if anyone's questioning about karma, here you go. Our understanding of karma is that which may be called inertia. Those actions which are put into motion will continue using the ways of balancing until such time as a controlling or higher principle which you may liken unto your breaking or stopping is invoked. This stoppage of the inertia of action may be called forgiveness. These two concepts are inseparable. If an entity develops what is called karma in an incarnation, is there then programming that somewhat occurs so that he will experience catalysts that will enable him to get to a point of forgiveness, thereby alleviating the karma? This is in general correct. However, both self and any involved other self may at any time, through the process of understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness, ameliorate these patterns. This is true at any point in an incarnated pattern. Thus, one who is set in motion in action may forgive itself and never again make that error. This also breaks or stops what you call karma. So that's really good to know. Thank you. Can you give me examples of catalytic action from the last session, beginning with the self unmanifested, producing a learning catalyst? We observe your interest in the catalyst of pain. This experience is most common among your entities. The pain may be of the physical complex. More often, it is of the mental and emotional complex. In some few cases, the pain is spiritual and complex in nature. This creates a potential for learning. The lessons to be learned vary. Almost always, these lessons include patience, tolerance, and the ability for the light touch. Very often, the catalyst for emotional pain, whether it be the death of the physical complex, of one other self which is loved, or other seeming loss, will simply result in the opposite, in a bitterness and impatience, a soaring. This is catalyst which has gone awry. In these cases, then, there will be additional catalysts provided to offer the unmanifested self further opportunities for discovering the self as an all-sufficient creator containing all that there is and full of joy. Do what we call contagious diseases play any part in this process with respect to the unmanifested self? These so-called contagious diseases are those entities of second density which offer an opportunity for this type of catalyst. If this catalyst is unneeded, then these second density creatures, as you will call them, do not have an effect. In each of these generalizations, you may please note that there are anomalies so that we cannot speak to every circumstance, but only to the general run or way of things as you experience them. So what part do we call birth effects play in this process? This is a portion of the programming of the mind-body-spirit complex, totality manifested in the mind-body-spirit of third density. These defects are planned as limitations which are part of the experience intended by the entity's totality complex. This includes genetic predispositions, as you may call them. Thank you. Can you give me the same type of information about the self in relation to the societal self? The unmanifested self may find its lessons those which develop any of the energy influx centers of the mind-body-spirit complex. The societal and self-interactions most often concentrate upon the second and third energy centers. Thus, those most active in attempting to remake or alter the society are those working from feelings of being correct personally or of having answers, which will put power in a more correct configuration. This may be seen to be of a full travel from negative to positive in orientation. Either will activate these energy ray centers. There are I can't even talk, sorry guys. There are some few whose desires to aid society are of a green ray nature or above. I think I need some water, a little break. Okay, my bad guys. There are some few whose desires to aid society are of a green ray nature or above. These entities, however, are few due to the understanding, may we say, of fourth density, of fourth ray, that universal love freely given is more to be desired than principalities or even the rearrangement of principles or political structures. If an entity were to be strongly biased toward positive societal effects, what would this do to his yellow ray in the aura, as opposed to an entity who wanted to create an empire of society and govern it with an iron fist? Let us take two such positively oriented active souls no longer in your physical time-space. The one known as Albert went into a strange and to a barbaric society in order to that it might heal. This entity was able to mobilize great amounts of energy of what you call money. This entity spent much green ray energy, both as a healer and as a lover of your instrument known as the organ. This entity's yellow ray was bright and crystallized by the efforts needed to procure the funds to promulgate its efforts. However, the green and blue rays were of a toweringly brilliant nature as well. The higher levels, as you may call them, being activated, the lower, as you may call them, energy points remaining in a balance, being quite bright. The other example is the entity Martin. This entity dealt in a great degree with rather negative orange ray and yellow ray vibratory patterns. However, this entity was able to keep open the green ray energy, and due to the severity of its testing, if anything, this entity may be seen to have polarized more towards the positive due to its fidelity to service to others in the face of great catalyst. Could you give me the last names of Albert and Martin? So these people that they're talking about are Albert Schweitzer and Martin Luther King, actually. Interesting. I thought that was correct, but I wasn't sure. Can you give me the same type of information that we have been getting here with respect to the unmanifested interacting between self and gadgets and toys and inventions? Which, in the material world where we live, that's, this will be very, very good. In this particular instance, we again concentrate for the most part in the orange and in the yellow energy centers. In a negative sense, many of the gadgets among your peoples, that is what you call your communication devices and other distractions, such as the less competitive games, may be seen to have the distortion of keeping the mind-body-spirit complex unactivated, so that yellow and orange ray activity is much weakened, thus carefully decreasing the possibility of eventual green ray activation. Others of your gadgets may be seen to be tools whereby the entity explores the capabilities of its physical or mental complexes, and in some few cases the spiritual complex, thus activating the orange ray in what you call your team sports and in other gadgets such as your modes of transport. These may be seen to be ways of investigating the feelings of power, more especially power over others or group power over another group of other selves. What is the overall effect of television on our society with respect to this catalyst? Without ignoring the green ray attempts of many to communicate via this medium, such information of truth and beauty as may be helpful, we must suggest that the sum effect of this gadget is that of distraction and sleep. Can you give me the same type of information that we are working on now with respect to war and rumors of war? You may see this in relationship to your gadgets. This war and self-relationship is a fundamental perception of the maturing entity. There is a great chance to accelerate in whatever direction is desired. One may polarize negatively by assuming bellicose attitudes for whatever reason. One may find oneself in the situation of war and polarize somewhat towards the positive activating orange, yellow, and then green rays by heroic, if you may call them this, actions taken to preserve the mind-body-spirit complexes of other selves. Finally, one may polarize very strongly third ray by expressing the principle of universal love at the total expense of any distortion towards involvement in bellicose actions. In this way, the entity may become a conscious being in a very brief span of your time-space. This may be seen to be what you will call a traumatic progression. It is to be noted that among your entities, a large percentage of all progression has a catalyst, which is trauma, which is very interesting. You just used the term third ray in that statement. Was that the term you meant to use? We intended the green ray. So see, not everyone can be perfect. Even if you're on the other dimensions, nothing's perfect. It's kind of funny. Our difficulty lies in our perception of red ray and violet ray is fixed. Thus the inner rays are those which are varying and are to be observed as those indications of seniority in the attempts to form a harvest. Would the red ray and intense red ray then be used as an index for seniority and incarnation as well as intense violet ray? This is partially correct. In the graduation or harvesting to fourth density positive, the red ray is seen only as that which, being activated, is the basis for all that occurs in vibratory levels, the sum of this being violet ray energy. Alright, so I'll probably stop in like 5 minutes. I'm not going to go for an hour. I don't want to bore you guys to death. This violet ray is the only consideration for fourth density positive. In assessing the harvestable fourth density negative, the intensity of the red as well as the orange and the yellow rays is looked upon quite carefully, as a great deal of stamina and energy of this type is necessary for the negative progression, it being extremely difficult to open the gateway to intelligent infinity from the solar plexus center. This is necessary for harvest and fourth density negative. Is it possible for you to use as an example our General Patton and tell me the effect that war had on him in his development? This will be the last full question of this working. The one of whom you speak, known as George, was one in whom the programming of previous incarnations had created a pattern or inertia which was irresistible in its incarnation in your time-space. This entity was of a strong yellow ray activation with frequent green ray openings and occasional blue ray openings. However, it did not find itself able to break the mold of previous traumatic experiences of a bellicose nature. This entity polarized somewhat towards the positive in its incarnation due to its singleness of belief in truth and beauty. This entity was quite sensitive. It felt a great honor duty to the preservation of that which was felt by the entity to be true, beautiful, and in need of defense. This entity perceived itself a gallant figure. It polarized somewhat towards the negative in its lack of understanding the green ray it carried with it, rejecting the forgiveness principle which is implicit in universal love. The sum total of this incarnation, vibrationally was a slight increase in positive polarity, but a decrease in harvestability. It's really interesting. Due to the rejection of the law or way of responsibility, that is, seeing universal love, yet still it fought on. Do we have enough time for me to ask if the death almost immediately after the cessation of war of this entity could have been so that it could have immediately been reincarnated so that it can make harvest? This is precisely correct. Thank you. Then I will just ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable. So, yeah, I will stop there. Seems like a good time. So, okay, so we did 2 sessions. Not too bad. So I will try to be back here tomorrow. I just got some homework I got to do. Like I told you guys, I'm done. It's really cool. My teacher canceled the last 2 weeks of class, so I don't have to show up, which means, like I said, more time to be on here. So it's awesome. So it's like, because the more you're caught up in the 3D life and you got all these things you got to do. You got to put, when you got to put a lot of this stuff or like connecting and just meditation, and when you got to kind of put that, in the back for a little bit, just because you have to work with other stuff, you kind of like just lose that like connection in a way sometimes, like not in a big way, but it's just like, I got to like meditate and vibrationally get back to that. But that's what I've been doing all day today. Today was a great day, so I'm looking forward to tomorrow, guys. So it'll be fun. So I'm gonna read some books, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna work out, I'm not gonna use too much energy, and see who comes through. So alright, guys, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good night, have a good Saturday, good weekend if I don't see you tomorrow, and take care. Love you guys as always, and keep on shining, people. So all right, I'll see you guys soon. Peace.